Once there was a show about a stoic, badass mercenary going planet to planet, completing jobs and missions and defeating one bad guy after another. Then that hard and cold as ice mercenary met a cute and lovable baby Yoda and took him along on his adventures, gradually becoming a surrogate father to the kid. These two characters are the yin and yang of the show. You have hard power with Mando and you have soft power with Baby Yoda. Along with all of that, you had some great visual and stylistic choices. When you were watching The Mandalorian, you felt like you were watching a sci-fi samurai film or a spaghetti western. All these elements made the show what it was, a hit. And this formula worked really well for about a season at least, then it slowly started to fall apart. Characters like Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Bo-Katan were introduced for no other reason than to have the audience know who they are, so they can watch their spin-off shows. And we all know how that turned out. The second season redeemed itself with digital Luke Skywalker coming along in the final episode, but it also left us with a sense of unease. Would the third season follow the same route? Will we get meandering, boring episodes with little or no purpose at all, just so we can save enough money, so we can have an action-packed episode or two for the finale of the season? Well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's clear that The Mandalorian has lost its way. They don't really know what to do with the character, and showrunner Jon Favreau has said in an interview that they don't have a grand plan with Mando. That's really a terrible approach to writing an overarching story with multiple seasons. I mean, The Mandalorian isn't a procedural show like a murder mystery where the focus is on solving a new crime each week and character development takes a back seat. There are some elements of a procedural show there, meaning that some bad guy will appear in each episode and Mando and Baby Yoda have to defeat them, but what is really missing is a well thought out, overarching storyline that will connect all the seasons. And something like that doesn't really exist, and the show really suffers from it, especially in the third season, where Mando and Baby Yoda go from one place to the next without any real purpose. The Mandalorian as a failure would have seemed laughable a couple of years ago, but not so much now. And not only in a creative way, but in a commercial way as well. The premiere has seen record low numbers. People seem to not care that much anymore. Well, I don't really blame them. There are so many TV shows right now that it's almost impossible for the majority of them to have any real quality. The reason being is that good shows need good scripts, and for that you need talented, good writers, and there's just not enough of them. But wait a minute, you might say, the showrunner of The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, writes most of the scripts. Well, the reason that the episodes of The Mandalorian are not up to scratch is that his boss, Kathleen Kennedy, has an outright agenda of making The Mandalorian a second-rate character in his own show. In the third season, everywhere he goes, he makes a fool of himself. He gets captured and Bo-Katan Kryze has to come to the rescue. I mean, it's really embarrassing. I have lost count of the times that he was about to die and Bo-Katan or Baby Yoda or someone else had to come to the rescue, especially the finale when he was fighting Moff Gideon and they made him out to be a totally useless hunk of metal. Just embarrassing. Contrast that with the character in the first season. He was a badass gun-slinging mercenary that didn't need the help of anyone. In reality, the reason that the show doesn't work anymore is because its main character Mando doesn't have a purpose. He doesn't have a clear desire for what he wants to do, which wasn't the case in the previous seasons. The first season of The Mandalorian was about saving Baby Yoda from Space Werner Herzog and the remnants of the Empire. The second season was Mando getting Baby Yoda to the Jedi so he can get some Force training. And the third season is about... I don't know, and neither does the show. In the first episode of the third season, we learn that because Mando took off his helmet, he has to redeem himself by bathing in the living waters of Mandalore. And in general, the main stick of the season is about how the Mandalorians won't take back their planet. From what exactly? We quickly learn that the radiation that made it uninhabitable is now all but gone. There are no native people there, no real danger from anyone that can prevent Mando and the rest of his people from moving into the planet. Mando's whole goal as a character for the third season is just to take a bath. That's pretty thin and completely uninteresting, especially if you think about that Mando does arrive in Mandalore and bathes in the living waters in the second episode, then he doesn't really have anything to do all season. We have already established that Mandalore is there for the taking, there are no obstacles in their way, so all season is spent on meandering missions where Mando loses his status as a main character and gradually fades to the background. Yeah, Mando isn't the protagonist anymore. The Mandalorian has now become the Bo-Katan Kryze show. What a fall from grace. To start off as a badass mercenary and end up being Kristen Cole. a pussy-whipped simp of a man that is there only to serve and kneel to Bo-Katan. None of that makes any sense and it really feels quite forced. Early in the lore, it was established that the dark sword of Mandalore is very important, that whoever holds it can rule Mandalore and the rest of the Mandalorians. In the second season, Mando defeated Paz Vizsla and kept the sword. Now Mando just gives it to Bo-Katan so she can unite the Mandalorians. But look what happens in the final episode. Bo-Katan fights off Moff Gideon and ends up losing and the sword gets destroyed. What a completely pointless storytelling decision. Why give the dark sword to Bo-Katan and have her lose the fight? So now Mando has lost all respect of the other Mandalorians by kneeling to Bo-Katan and the dark sword is gone, so by extension the prophecy of whoever holds the sword can unite the Mandalore is also gone. By having Mando give the dark sword to Bo-Katan, the show has messed up the chances of a united Mandalore, because how exactly the other Mandalorians will trust Bo-Katan ever again, now that she doesn't even hold the sword anymore? Looking back at Season 3, one can easily see that there wasn't enough compelling and captivating material to work with. Honestly, you could have told the entire story of the season in the first 2 episodes, but instead of Moff Gideon dying in the finale, you could have let him escape and build more of him as your main villain. Well, until Admiral Thrawn comes along, that is. But let's go back to Mando for a moment. Whole seasons and storylines are built into what a character wants and what they're prepared to do to get it. And since Mando doesn't really have any desires and Baby Yoda doesn't really want anything either, then they are left to be pulled around by the whims of the plot, whatever that is in each episode. If the other Mandalorians want to move into Mandalore, I guess Din Djarin wants that also, which by the way didn't happen at all at the end of the season. Mando didn't stay in Mandalore, but instead went to chill out with Grief Karga. The only thing that's missing from the final shot of the finale is a white picket fence and maybe Baby Yoda on a white pony prancing around the house. Having a character with a clear agenda in the first 2 seasons, but having none in the third, at least not in any meaningful way, is quite the problem. But for me, the biggest issue is that The Mandalorian is starting to become a kids show. The plastic heads, the CGI, the silly plotlines, or how about episode 6 with Jack Black and Lizzo? I mean, come on, it feels like you're watching a different show, a kids show. It's all just too jarring. Think about how The Mandalorian started. In the pilot, we saw Mando killing a man by crashing him between a door. I mean, I get The Mandalorian is a Disney show, and maybe there can be some leeway there, but you need some serious, heart-stopping episodes to balance it out. And the last really good episode was the second season finale. But that's the thing, you can only pull the Skywalker card so many times. If people are expecting him to drop by, then it's not really a surprise, and then you have to think of a way to place him inside the Mandalorian storyline. The last 2 episodes of Season 3 were okay, nothing really special. Moff Gideon is a bit overpowered, but really there's not much that makes any sense. Moff Gideon's soldiers are supposed to be wearing Beskar armor, but they can easily be shot down. How does that work exactly? Or the bad guys in red are supposed to be these evil badass assassins, but they're having trouble fighting a baby? Come on. And what about here in this scene where Mando gets hit with a flamethrower? Why doesn't his cape catch fire? Did I miss the episode where he got a fireproofed cape or something? Really, the sloppiness is getting way too much. And that brings us to the arbitrary rule of the Mandalorians not removing their helmets. I think no one in the writing staff has really thought this through, because if you start to think about it, even for a minute, it gets pretty laughable.
So our culture may flourish, and our children can feel what it is to play in the sunlight.
Really, you want more Mandalorians? Oh, I can see the romance sparkling, people falling in love by the shape of their helmet. And how exactly are they having sex? Helmet on or off? If it's off, do they need to bathe in the living waters of Mandalore? Anyway, all of it is very ridiculous, a completely childlike concept. Once I was excited to watch the new Mandalorian episode, to see a corner of the Star Wars universe where you didn't have to know the lore, you didn't need to have watched every single spin-off and animated Star Wars show to get the reference. Early on, The Mandalorian was a simple, action-driven oriented show. It was elegant without it being boring. All in all, it was fun to watch. Now, it's just another Disney kids show.